Have you ever stopped to think about how much pain the human body can endure for a greater purpose? Imagine the scene for a moment. The weight of the cross pressing down on every muscle, sweat mixed with the dust of the road, each step a challenge that seems impossible to overcome. Jesus, already wounded and exhausted, moved forward slowly, his body crying out for relief, but his mind and heart firm, guided by an obedience that surpasses any human understanding. It's easy to look from the outside and think only of the physical pain, but what you are about to discover may surprise you, because each step he carried reveals something much greater than suffering. It reveals lessons about limits, courage, and the strength that is born precisely when we recognize our weaknesses. Stay with me until the end, because this story isn't just about Jesus carrying the cross. It's about understanding the spiritual value of accepting one's own limitations, of obeying even when everything within us wants to give up. Every gasping breath, every drop of sweat running down the face, every movement of the aching body speaks of a resistance that is not only physical, but profoundly spiritual. The detail of how far he managed to carry the cross shows us that there is a purpose in every weakness acknowledged, in every moment when the body seems to give way and the soul remains firm. And if you have ever experienced moments when you felt you couldn't go on, this reflection may touch you in an intense and personal way, because Jesus also knew this human limitation. The weight of the cross wasn't just wood. It was the weight of the world, of expectations, of the mission, but also of the love he silently carried. It's impressive to think that every step counted, not only to fulfill a destiny, but to teach us all that recognizing our limitations is not a failure, but an opportunity to manifest faith and inner strength. When we look at this journey, we realize that obedience isn't always glorious in the eyes of the world. Often, it's silent, discreet, almost invisible, but absolutely transformative. What Jesus shows us by carrying the cross as far as his body allowed is that true strength lies not in ignoring pain, but in walking through it with purpose and faith. And there's a detail that many don't realize. Each heavy step, each fall, each hesitation was a hidden teaching, a lesson that transcends physical suffering and speaks directly to our spiritual life. This experience invites us to reflect on our own limitations, on how far we can go when faced with difficulties, on how obedience and faith can sustain us even when everything seems lost. It's an invitation to see vulnerability as something valuable, to realize that weakness, when embraced with courage, can reveal invisible strength and profound purpose. Now, before moving on to what comes next, imagine the intensity of this moment, the body almost surrendered, the mind focused on the mission, the heart full of obedience and love. Each step carries a message that goes far beyond what any word could express, a silent teaching about resilience, human limitations, and spiritual strength. This is the point where the story ceases to be merely an account of physical suffering and becomes a powerful reflection on faith, courage, and purpose. And it is precisely in this detail, in this junction between human limitation and spiritual strength, that Jesus' journey carrying the cross invites us to delve even deeper into understanding the true meaning of taking up our own cross in life. And as you follow each step of this journey, it's impossible not to reflect on your own limitations and how we face life's challenges. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what touched you most during this moment, what difficult step in your life you felt you carried with faith, even when exhausted. Each story shared here strengthens our community and reminds us that we are not alone on this journey. By leaving your comment, you help others connect with this reflection and also contribute to more people being able to hear and be inspired by this type of content. If this message touched your heart, please give the video a like. It's a simple gesture that shows you value the content and encourages the channel to continue bringing profound reflections on Jesus, faith, and courage. Each like helps this message reach more people who need this learning and inspiration. And if you truly want to follow every detail of these teachings, the stories of Jesus, and the lessons they bring to our lives, subscribe to the channel. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content, allowing more people to discover these gestures, silences, and attitudes of Jesus that carry hidden and transformative teachings. By subscribing, you become part of a community that seeks to understand not only the biblical episodes but the essence behind them, and helps keep alive the mission of sharing these reflections. And as we reflect on each arduous step Jesus took, the sweat, the pain, and the silent strength that kept him steadfast, you can begin to realize that there is something much greater in this story than just a physical account of suffering. It is at this point that your experience, opinion, and participation become part of the journey, transforming the simple act of watching into an exchange of faith, learning, and connection that transcends the screen. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject and lead you to feel each step Jesus took on that arduous path. Imagine the weight of the cross on his already wounded shoulders, the weariness that coursed through every muscle, the pain that made each movement a conscious decision between giving up or continuing. He didn't carry the cross completely to the end, and it is precisely in this detail that one of the most profound lessons lies. Recognizing one's own limits is not weakness, it is assumed courage. Each heavy step that seemed to exceed the capacity of the human body reveals the dimension of obedience and the spiritual purpose that sustained each gesture. It's as if each tense muscle told a silent story, a narrative of dedication and faith that surpasses any logical or rational understanding. When we think of strength, we often imagine flawless endurance, a body that doesn't give way, a mind that ignores pain. But Jesus shows that true strength also involves recognizing when physical limits are reached and, even then, continuing the mission that faith demands. Each momentary fall, each pause forced by the exhausted body, becomes an opportunity for reflection on human and spiritual nature. Pain and physical effort become vehicles of transformation, small windows through which we can understand the depth of obedience and the impact of a life totally dedicated to divine purpose. It is in this contrast between bodily fragility and firmness of spirit that a message is revealed that touches the soul of anyone who has ever faced challenges that seemed impossible. Imagine the mindset of someone who, even in the face of extreme exhaustion, does not stray from the path. Every step Jesus took was a conscious decision to surrender to a higher will, to obey something that transcended human comprehension. And it is this mindset that inspires us today. It's not just about physical endurance, but about realizing that there is a hidden value in conscious effort, in total surrender despite the body's natural limitations. It's as if every drop of sweat and every painful breath were silent testimonies of faith, records of courage and commitment that reverberate beyond the physical experience itself. This journey teaches us that acknowledged weakness is not an obstacle to purpose, but rather a bridge to revelations and insights that can only arise when we recognize our limitations. The impact of this gesture goes far beyond what anyone could measure at first glance. For the disciples and for all who witnessed it, it may have seemed only physical suffering, an unbearable hardship. But upon closer inspection, we perceive the hidden message, that recognizing human limitations and continuing with faith is an act of courage that inspires transformation. Each step is a decision, each pause is a moment of reflection, each gasp of breath is an expression of perseverance that connects the physical to the spiritual. The weight of the cross, therefore, is not just wood and sweat. It is a symbol of resilience, of awareness, of purpose that transcends physical barriers and teaches us about the true nature of faith. As we imagine Jesus moving forward, we feel the journey of every human being who faces challenges that test body and soul. This reflection on limits leads us to realize that life is made up of small, continuous decisions, of choices between giving in to difficulty or persisting with faith and courage, even when the body and mind ask for rest. It is an opportunity to look at our own challenges and recognize that strength lies not in the absence of pain, but in how we deal with it, in the transformation that occurs when we accept our vulnerability and still move forward. And it is at this point that we can begin to make personal connections, to reflect on our own journeys. Each of us carries symbolic crosses, moments when the effort seems unbearable and the limit seems near. By perceiving Jesus' gesture, who carried the cross as far as his body allowed, we are invited to understand that there is spiritual value in the weakness we acknowledge, that our limitations can become tools for growth, courage, and learning. It is an invitation to see each challenge as an opportunity to reveal inner strength and connection with something greater. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject and lead you to reflect on something that often goes unnoticed: the relationship between physical pain and spiritual strength, between the limits of the body and the depth of the soul. Imagine Jesus walking slowly, each step a conscious effort, each muscle clamoring for rest, each breath heavy as if every second were a battle between physical exhaustion and the mission he knew he needed to fulfill. It's not just about carrying wood. It's about carrying purpose, about manifesting obedience and faith even when the whole body cries out for relief. It is in this contrast that the spiritual dimension of weakness is revealed, and it is there that we learn a lesson that transcends any human suffering. Recognizing limits is not weakness, it is courage. It is conscious presence in the face of a calling that surpasses one's own strength. What does it mean, after all, to acknowledge our limitations and still obey? Think about the times you've felt exhausted, drained, at the limit of what you could bear. How many times has life demanded that you continue even when it seemed impossible? Jesus, on that road, not only endured, he transformed each painful step into an expression of purpose and faith, showing that true spirituality is not about appearing strong to others or ignoring pain, but about recognizing vulnerability and moving forward with silent courage. Every drop of sweat, every tense muscle, every gasping breath is not a sign of weakness, but of a surrender that connects the physical to the spiritual, that transforms suffering into a message, limitation into revelation, pain into learning. Now, if you look closely, you'll realize that the strength revealed in that moment isn't something grand in the eyes of the world, but profoundly impactful for those who understand the essence of faith. Jesus' body could have given way, the human body had clear limits, but his soul and spirit remained firm, anchored in a purpose that went far beyond any rational comprehension. This is a lesson that applies directly to our lives. Often, we think that spirituality demands perfection, unwavering strength, infinite endurance. But the message of Jesus carrying the cross as far as his body allowed teaches us that true strength lies in recognizing what we cannot bear alone and still persisting, trusting that each step, even a limited one, has eternal value. The spiritual dimension of weakness reveals something even deeper when we begin to connect the physical with the emotional and the mental. The weight he carried was not only that of the wood, but also of expectations, of the divine plan, of the mission that demanded obedience to the end. Each painful step is like a symbol of what we face in our own lives. Invisible burdens, responsibilities that press upon us, challenges that exhaust us, moments when we think we can no longer continue. But the difference lies in the attitude towards limitation. While many give up or deny the reality of exhaustion, Jesus shows us that courage is not in the absence of pain, but in the conscious decision to continue, to persist, to obey the call, even when body and soul are exhausted. And there's something curious and revealing about this. Acknowledging weakness, recognizing limitations, doesn't diminish the impact of an action. On the contrary, the spirituality that manifests in this context becomes even more powerful, because each step fraught with human effort transforms into an eternal message. It's as if each arduous movement silently speaks of perseverance, resilience, and total surrender. Spirituality isn't about noise, about appearances, about displaying strength. It's about silent intensity, about each decision made despite exhaustion, about courage that manifests itself in the moment when everything within us begs us to give up. This is a profound, almost hidden revelation that history offers us. Spiritual greatness is intimately linked to the capacity to continue, even while acknowledging one's own limitations. And when we think about our daily lives, we see the impact of this even more clearly. Every challenge we face, every moment we feel we've reached our physical, emotional, or mental limit can become a reflection of this same lesson. The courage to acknowledge our weaknesses, to recognize that we can't do everything alone, is what allows us to develop authentic faith, a spirituality that doesn't depend on perfection, but on conscious persistence. It's an invitation to reflect on our daily decisions, on how we deal with limitations, on how we transform exhaustion and vulnerability into something that has purpose and impact not only for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Now imagine each step of Jesus as an example of silent transformation, as a gesture that carries hidden truth and profound revelations about the nature of faith. Each effort of the body is also a metaphor for our own journeys, for the behind-the-scenes aspects of our decisions, for the moments when we need to choose between yielding to difficulty or persisting in the mission, even if it seems impossible. It is a lesson about mindset, about recognizing that strength is not the absence of pain, but awareness of purpose and the courage to continue. And as we reflect on this spiritual dimension of weakness, we realize that there are hidden lessons in every detail, in the tiredness, in the panting breath, in the sweat that drips, in the persistence in the face of limits. Each element of Jesus' journey teaches us that acknowledged weakness can be transformed into strength, that obeying within our limits reveals true faith, and that authentic spirituality manifests itself precisely when we recognize that we are not omnipotent, but are willing to move forward with purpose. It is at this point that we can connect physical pain to the invisible strength of the spirit, understanding that each step has an impact, that each effort generates transformation, that each recognized limit can open doors to profound revelations. Comment below, "This makes sense to me." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject and invite you to immerse yourself in the power of silent obedience, the kind that doesn't need applause, recognition, or visibility to fulfill its purpose. Imagine Jesus advancing step by step, each movement marked by extreme exhaustion, each breath a conscious effort, yet still completely committed to the divine plan. What you are about to discover may change the way you view your own limitations, because obedience manifested in this way shows us something few people realize, that true greatness lies not in what the eyes of the world can measure, but in the invisible impact that faithful dedication has on time, life, and spirit. Each step Jesus took carrying the cross was not merely physical. It was a silent lesson in courage, spiritual discipline, and surrender that transcends any momentary pain. When we think of obedience, we often associate it with external rules or visible acts, but here the message goes far beyond that. Jesus didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He didn't seek recognition from his disciples, nor approval from those around him. Yet, every step he took was an act of profound commitment, a testament to the fact that obeying God's will involves perseverance, acceptance of pain, and above all, silent courage. There is something transformative in this kind of surrender, because it reveals that true spirituality doesn't depend on noise, demonstration, or immediate visible results, but on the intimate alignment between mind, heart, and divine purpose. As we observe this journey, we begin to realize how silent obedience possesses an extraordinary power that often escapes human perception. To the disciples, the guards, and the spectators of the scene, it may have seemed like mere physical suffering, weakness, or incapacity. But before God, each step carried with intention, each effort endured in silence, holds an eternity of meaning. It is as if each heavy movement of the cross carries with it hidden truths about faith, perseverance, and the transformation that happens behind the scenes of pain. The mindset of those who persist without fanfare, recognizing limitations and yet choosing to walk on, is a model of strength that defies our everyday understanding. This lesson on silent obedience connects us directly to our own lives. We all face moments when the weight of responsibility, expectation, or challenge seems greater than we can bear. It is at this point that reflection becomes profound. True courage is not ignoring the limit, but choosing to continue purposefully despite it. Each conscious decision to persist, even in exhaustion, brings us closer to a deeper understanding of what it means to walk with faith and integrity. And by observing Jesus in this scene, we understand that strength lies not in never failing or giving in, but in recognizing what we are capable of enduring and still continuing with determination, even when no one is watching. The impact of this lesson is twofold. First, it shows us that there is value and purpose even in moments when we feel incapable, and second, it reveals that our actions, however silent they may be, can generate eternal effects and transform realities we could never have imagined. Silent obedience is an invisible force that shapes character, strengthens spirit, and creates paths that can only be perceived by those who have the sensitivity to see beyond the immediate. It is in the background of effort, in the small choices to continue despite the pain, that the greatest revelations about faith, resilience, and alignment with divine truth emerge. Every step, every pause, every gasping breath Jesus took, even with his body almost giving out, was a lesson that obeying the divine plan is a conscious decision that transforms not only the one who practices it, but all who are touched by the example. And it is precisely at this point that we can begin to apply this understanding to our own lives, realizing that each moment of silent effort, each act of discreet courage, each choice to move forward despite physical or emotional exhaustion has a profound impact, a relevance that goes far beyond what is seen on the surface. As we reflect on this dimension, we begin to realize that obedience and true faith go hand in hand, and that the power of silent action is often greater than any grand or visible gesture. The lesson Jesus leaves us here is clear. Spiritual strength manifests itself in conscious persistence, in the courage to continue, in the recognition of limitations, and in absolute surrender to the purpose that guides us. It is in this balance between human weakness and spiritual determination that we find inspiration for our own journeys. discovering that even in moments of vulnerability, there is an eternal impact, a transformation that does not depend on applause, but on faithfulness to what is right and true. Comment below, "This makes sense to me." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject and invite you to reflect on something we may never have stopped to think about with such intensity: the weight of carrying one's own cross and how much the body, mind, and spirit can endure before it becomes necessary to ask for help, breathe, or simply admit that there are limits. Imagine Jesus advancing on that arduous path, each step marked by extreme effort, each breath a silent battle between physical pain and divine purpose. He did not ignore the limits of his own body. On the contrary, he embraced them, respected them, and still continued, demonstrating that recognizing our limits does not diminish us, but humanizes us and strengthens us spiritually. It is in this contrast between human fragility and spiritual strength that the story reveals something transformative, which connects directly with the life of each one of us. We all, at some point, face our own crosses, situations where the weight of work, responsibilities, emotional pain, or physical exhaustion seems unbearable. The analogy with Jesus teaches us that there is no shame in feeling our limits, in admitting that we cannot carry everything alone, but that there is real value in continuing with faith, even within our limitations. Every conscious effort, every step taken despite exhaustion, every moment we decide not to give up is an expression of courage and resilience that transcends the physical and touches directly on the spiritual dimension of our existence. It is in this limited, but real and intentional effort that true faith is revealed, the kind that does not depend on immediate results or applause, but on silent perseverance, complete dedication, and surrender to the greater purpose. When we analyze Jesus' journey carrying the cross, we see that the great lesson lies precisely in how he transforms each step into learning. It's not just about enduring physical pain. It's about taking responsibility, obeying the divine plan, and persevering even when everything within the body and mind begs for rest. It's an invitation to reflect on our own mindset. How do we react to situations that test our resilience, patience, and faith? How many times have we tried to ignore our limits or demand more of ourselves than we can bear, only to discover that true growth lies in respecting our limitations and still moving forward with purpose and clarity of decision? This perspective completely changes how we understand human effort. It's easy to admire grand and heroic feats, but true transformation happens behind the scenes, in the conscious and limited effort that each person is capable of sustaining. Each arduous step of Jesus symbolizes that there is dignity, meaning, and profound learning in respecting our own limits, that obedience, faith, and surrender are not in the amount of weight we carry, but in the quality of effort we put into each action, in the awareness that every step matters and that real effort, though limited, can generate eternal impact. And when we connect this to our daily lives, we realize that the crosses we bear don't need to be seen as unbearable burdens, but as opportunities for growth, transformation, and reflection. Every challenge, every responsibility, every moment when we feel we are at our physical or emotional limit is an invitation to exercise resilience, courage, and conscious faith. The Bible offers us clear examples that spiritual greatness lies not in the absence of weakness, but in how we face our limitations. Paul, in his letters, speaks of the strength that is perfected in weakness, and that is exactly what Jesus' journey with the cross teaches us. There is purpose and revelation in real, limited, but persistent effort that acknowledges the body, mind, and spirit simultaneously. Each step, each pause, each difficult breath of Jesus becomes a mirror of our own journey. It is a reminder that it is acceptable to have limits, but that these limits do not define us. What defines us is the decision to continue, to move forward with faith and purpose, even while acknowledging our vulnerabilities. There is an invisible and eternal power in this kind of surrender, because it connects us with the essence of obedience and shows us that true spirituality is not measured by apparent strength, but by the integrity of the effort within our possibilities. And as we reflect on all of this, we begin to realize that resilience, acceptance, and the value of conscious effort are not merely abstract concepts, but practices applicable to daily life. Every step we take consciously, every decision not to give up in the face of pain or limitations, every effort we make with intention and faith is a reflection of the same principle that guided Jesus, that recognizing our limitations and yet walking with purpose is the purest expression of courage and spirituality. It is in this learning that the story of the cross touches us deeply, because it reminds us that limited effort, when aligned with divine intention, has a real impact, transforms mindset, awakens revelations, and shapes character. And so, as we follow every detail of this journey, we begin to understand that carrying one's own cross as far as the body allows is a powerful metaphor for life, respecting limits, valuing effort, obeying with faith, and allowing transformation to occur, even in moments of exhaustion. It is in this balance between fragility and determination, between pain and purpose, that we discover the depth of the meaning of spiritual life and the impact of our conscious actions. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject and bring to your attention the emotional dimension that often goes unnoticed when we think about Jesus' journey carrying the cross. Each step he took was not merely physical. Each labored breath, each tense muscle, each moment of exhaustion reveals a silent lesson on how to deal with limits, pain, and challenges that seem greater than ourselves. Imagine for a moment being on that path, feeling the weight of the wood on your shoulders, feeling your body almost giving in, and yet moving with purpose. This gesture teaches us that spiritual life is not in the absence of fatigue or suffering, but in how we choose to continue, aware of our limitations, trusting in something greater than ourselves. The experience of carrying one's own cross immediately connects us to our reality. We all, in some way, carry burdens we didn't choose, responsibilities that test our patience, moments when it seems we've reached our physical, emotional, or spiritual limits. And it is precisely in these moments that the story of Jesus touches us deeply, because it shows us that there is value in recognizing our limitations without losing faith, without giving up on the purpose entrusted to us. It is an invitation for every step we take in our daily lives, even small and silent ones, to be filled with intention, courage, and obedience. When we think of obedience and faith, we often imagine grand gestures, visibility, applause, or recognition. But what we see in Jesus' journey is that real power lies in quiet persistence, conscious surrender, and the decision to continue even when no one is watching. This is one of the greatest revelations. True spiritual strength is not measured by the appearance of invincibility, but by the courage to face limits, to embrace our vulnerability, and still walk towards divine purpose. Each step taken within the limits of the body, each conscious effort, is an opportunity for transformation that impacts not only the one who practices it, but everyone around them, directly or indirectly. The weight of the cross then becomes a powerful metaphor for all the difficulties and challenges we face. It reminds us that we don't have to carry everything alone, and that recognizing our limits is not weakness, but wisdom. On the contrary, it is in accepting real effort, in being aware of human limitations, and in deciding to continue with faith that we reveal the depth of spiritual courage. Each heavy step is a silent testament to the fact that persistence, resilience, and commitment to purpose have eternal value, even when exhaustion seems to prevail. Furthermore, this example teaches us something essential about leadership and spiritual influence. Those around us don't always understand or recognize the meaning of our efforts. Just like the disciples, who often didn't grasp the spiritual dimension of each of Jesus' steps, in our own lives we may face misunderstanding, criticism, or lack of recognition. Even so, what matters is faithfulness to the calling, the integrity of the effort, and the awareness that every action, even invisible to the world, has a profound and lasting impact. Reflecting on this perspective, we realize that each step taken with faith, each challenge faced with courage within our limits, is an expression of transformation. True strength is not the absence of weakness, but the way we rise, move forward, and continue walking, even when body and spirit crave rest. It is a lesson that invites us to look at our own challenges with a different mindset, to see the value of conscious effort, silent obedience, and commitment to the purpose that guides us. And that is precisely why this story is not simply a tale of physical suffering. It inspires us to transform our own crosses into paths of spiritual growth, to recognize that every limitation, every necessary pause, every effort within our capabilities is significant. This reflection helps us understand that true faith manifests itself in the balance between action and acceptance, strength and vulnerability, persistence and recognition of limitations. By doing so, we are invited to apply these lessons to daily life, in the challenges of work, in relationships, in difficult choices, and in moments when we feel we can't go on. Every decision to continue with purpose is, in itself, an act of faith that reverberates far beyond the moment it is practiced. This journey leads us to understand that carrying one's own cross is not just about enduring suffering, but about discovering the spiritual value of each conscious effort, of each step we take even when we are tired, of each moment in which we choose silent obedience instead of giving up. It is in this space between limitation and purpose that we find profound revelations, silent transformations, and a direct connection with what is eternal. Jesus' example shows us that spiritual life does not require perfection or unlimited strength, but rather courage, awareness, and faithfulness to what is right and true. If this video touched you, leave a comment below with a word or phrase that represents your own cross and how you have been carrying it with faith. Like the video so that more people can reflect on this message, and subscribe to the channel to continue following stories and lessons from Jesus that change the way we see faith. And as you reflect on each step of this journey, I want to invite you to continue with us on this path. If you felt something profound while following this story, leave a comment with a phrase like, "I'm with you until the end," or "This message was for me," showing that you've made it this far and connected with what was shared. Also, give the video a like, because it's this interaction that keeps this channel alive, allowing more people to access reflections and stories that transform the way we see faith and spiritual life. And look, there's a video right here that complements this topic in an even more intense way. Click and continue with me there, so that together we can delve even deeper into the lessons of Jesus that inspire us to walk with courage, purpose, and faith, even when the burden seems too great.